Guys, what's up? I had the pleasure of talking to Saundra Little and Karen Davis Burton about Noir Design Parti. Noir Design Parti explores how Black architects shape the physical identity of Detroit and their influence on design and community building in future generations. This conversation is Detroit based, which I'm very excited about. As well as, just to get to know Karen and Saundra a little bit. One of the things that I got out of the conversation was just how well Saundra and Karen work together. They've known each other since the formation of the NOMA chapter in Detroit, and they've been business besties ever since. Both Karen and Saundra are from Michigan, and we talked about Detroit and in their own professional and personal opinions about how the changes of Detroit affect both them and the architecture profession. Individually, they're both powerhouses. Saundra, along with a partner, had their own architectural firm. Karen is an entrepreneur. She has his co-working space called SpaceLab Detroit, and they're just doing their thing. Most importantly, we talked about Noir Design Parti. How did that form? Why did it form? Just the importance of documenting the African American architecture history and not forget the imprint that we've made, not only in Detroit, but, in the U.S. and globally. I do have a side note to talk about. The interview was done on an app called Anchor.fm, and they have this feature called Invite Friends to Join, and I've been using it so far on previous interviews, but this time by far it was not a pleasant experience. There was this clicking sound, like this typing sound, every time I talked or every time Saundra or Karen talked. And I was hoping that this was not recording, and sadly it was recording. I ended up using Adobe Audition to try to take this clicking, typing sound out without losing the quality of the conversation. Anchor.fm is a good app overall. I use it for my RSS feed. As well as giving me analytics. It is a free app, and they also provide you can have sponsors on it. I sparsely use that feature because you have to promote Anchor.fm, and I am still promoting it. It's just I am warning you about the have friends to join feature. So I would record to myself if I'm out and about and I don't have the microphone and my laptop in front of me. But don't call anybody on it. The next interview I'm using Zoom now, and that seems to be better. And both of the apps are free. There are paid ones, but I'm not there yet. If you would like to sponsor me and you enjoy what I'm doing, glow.fm is my page where you can become a member and support my efforts, and so I can upgrade in software and really provide a quality of that you deserve to hear. So this is a shameless plug for that. Just go to glow.fm/archespoly, or you can just check on the show notes too. And also shout out to my sponsor again. You'll hear the commercial of Smart Sheet for Architects. Anyway, here you go.
Hello, Melissa.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you for asking us.
Yeah. I follow Noir Design Parti on Twitter, and I also follow Karen and Saundra. I know you inadvertently through first through Nikita Reed
Oh,
and
yes. Okay.
then through Tiffany Brown.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, I've never met either of you, but I feel like I've known you through like either through other people or just social media.
Right. I
Yes.
know I've
Yeah.
been following you for a long time. So, right?
Sorry, what?
You're still in DC, right?
I am.
Okay.
What I want to do is kind of interested. How did you two meet?
Uh, I think we met when the Detroit Noma chapter was forming.
Yeah. And at the same time, I think we were working at the same firm.
Yeah, right before. Yeah. Around there.
Yeah, working on projects in Las Vegas from Detroit.
Are you both natives of Detroit?
I am from Flint, which is about 50 miles. You know about Flint, I'm sure, but about 50 miles up the road.
And I grew up right outside of Detroit, Metro Detroit, right by the airport in Westland, Michigan, outside of that. So I've always been here in Michigan, Southeast Michigan.
Okay, all right. And your family from there too, so it's like generational, right?
Yes.
Right. Well, my family is originally from Georgia, but a couple generations here in Michigan.
Okay, all right. So did you guys go to the same school? I know Saundra, you went to Lawrence. Remember?
And I went to Michigan, University of Michigan.
Okay, all right. Mm-hmm. So how'd you guys get into architecture?
Wow. I don't know. Ever since I was younger, I started out with a love of art and kind of talking with my mom, who had a little bit of an art background, about different career paths, and I started looking at careers. Knew I didn't want to be an engineer, and started finding out more about architecture. But I felt like I wanted to bring a career to my mom that she would approve of, and still had art in it. So, uh, and then I guess in a weird way, I'm finding out the older as I get that I was noticing things with buildings at a very young age.
So I always loved art, and I was good at math. And I had an uncle who was an architect. He passed away when I was really young, but my family kind of steered me in that direction. My dad used to take us through the houses that were being built in our neighborhood, and I liked seeing them being constructed. Looking at the joists and the studs and all that kind of stuff. So when I was in the fourth grade, one of my good friends, her father was an architect as well. I don't believe he was. He used to come to our class and bring drawings and tell us a little bit about architecture, I think. So I decided when I was about 9 or 10 years old that I wanted to be an architect.
So you both went to school, you graduated.
Yes.
And then what happened?
For me, I ended up doing both my degrees at Lawrence Tech, undergrad, and my master's degree in architecture. So when I was an undergrad, finding out about the fact that I really can't say I'm an architect unless I became licensed, it became a driving force for me to prepare to become licensed, because I was like, nobody's not going to tell me, or you're not going to tell me that I can't say I'm an architect. That became just the goal of getting licensed and preparing for the exam. Once I got done with school, and and got the master's and 3 years of internship. Did the track of small firm, really small firm, working for like a 2-man office, medium sized firm of about 10 to 12 or 10 to 12 people, and then a large firm. And I feel like I learned so much going through those steps.
So my career trajectory was a little different. I got my undergrad degree from Michigan. But I always had interest in a lot of different things that were architecture related. So I worked on the survey crew for Michigan Department of Transportation when I was in college. I worked for a contractor in his office, and there were just the two of us. So I learned how to put together construction bids. And I did some architectural design for him. I worked in the architecture department at University of Michigan Hospital, and then in the facilities department at General Motors, and worked for some small architecture firms. And in working with the smaller firms, I found that I liked the business side of architecture and construction. So I went back and started working on my master's degree at Wayne State University here in Detroit. And never did get licensed. But I still got to work on some great projects on the teams for some great architectural projects here in Detroit, and with Saundra on the largest project at the time, development project in the US at the time, in Las Vegas. So during when architecture work got really slow, I started working with smaller firms like Saundra's on marketing and business development, and kind of turned in that direction, working on the business side of the architecture and construction and engineering business. Built some clientele there. But then working from home and freelancing, working out of Starbucks and other people's offices, I found that I wanted to share resources office with other people who were freelancing as well. And my husband and I, a couple of years ago, started a co-working space for people in the built environment sessions. And Saundra was the architect. Her firm was the architect for this space called SpaceLab Detroit. So I've kind of been all over the place in the architecture, design, and construction fields, facilities management. But I fall into the things that I love to do.
So, since you guys never really left the state, you were there from up until now. So, how I want to focus on Detroit a little bit and how your perception of the changes that has been going on ever since the economic downturn back in 2006.
So that's just mind blowing actually, because it always seemed like there was always about to be this big revival in Detroit, and it felt
Right.
like, I mean, from the time I got out of school, it was really good. Like I said, working for the large firm I was at times were good. You know, working on projects all around, and this is an automotive town, so I was working on like 13 different UAW childcare centers, and then all of a sudden things like started to slow down, and it picked back up for a little bit. Went to another firm, you know, started to happen, and it was like one or two big projects in Detroit, and that was it. And then after the recession, it was just like, man, this felt like, yeah, it felt really bad in Detroit. As they say, if the red has the cold, then we have the flu. And it really felt like that. And then when things started to turn around, in this last recession, I started my firm out of the last recession, and was able to literally ride the success of the revitalization of Detroit, and just work on wonderful projects. You know, just to see it go from everybody really kind of talking bad about Detroit to everybody outside the city excited about Detroit again, and asking about projects that are happening here, and we becoming, you know, the UNESCO City of Design. And if I look back over it's so much that has happened in Detroit that has just been amazing, and projects that are coming to life that we never thought would come to life again in Detroit, like the train station project, which is a project that's now underway by Ford Motor Company in Corktown to be the center of, and for the Detroit to come back as instead of the motor city, on top of mobility. So just the strides in this last 10 years have been greater than the 20 before. It's been remarkable.
Right. I know, like from early 2000s, early to mid 2000s, until the recession, I had worked downtown, and downtown Detroit was the city. You come downtown, you go to work, and then you go home. There weren't many restaurants down here. There wasn't much to do in the evening after work. And now that has come to the point where they're talking about having 24-hour districts in the city, where there's something to do all of the time. So it just amazes me, this area where my office is now. I had to walk past here when I used to work downtown. And I wouldn't say safe and secure walking, because I did. It was really you didn't really see anybody. But now there are people down here all the time. There's all types of restaurants to go to, all types of activities going on all the time. And as a Black woman, I was down here a couple weeks ago on a Saturday evening, walking to my car after working here during the day, and I didn't see one Black person as I walked to my car, a few blocks to my car. Not one Black person in downtown Detroit. So that blew me away. It bothered me, but that tells you that the city has really changed.
So where did all the Black people go?
All the Black people are still in Detroit, but
it's a lot more Blacks in the Midtown, North End part of Detroit, not the downtown.
Midtown, North End, and definitely in the neighborhoods. But there has been a large influx of other people in downtown Detroit.
Yeah, and a lot of different ethnic backgrounds.
Right.
It's really become very diverse in downtown.
Right.
Yeah. So DC didn't really. We were affected, but not by much due to the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people came to the DC metro area for work. So housing wasn't cheap, but it wasn't like ridiculous either. So like back in like 2007, you can get a house for $300,000. Now you're looking at close to $1 million, like 800,000, 900,000. During that time, it was rumored to like, oh, hey, you want to buy a cheap house? Go to Detroit. If you want to become an investor, go to Detroit. So how did that change? Am I correct in saying that, first of all? And then second of all, how did that change the dynamic? People, outside folks coming in and buying our property, and
it's still affecting Detroit. I mean, that's still an ongoing activity. People coming into the city, purchasing property. You can't get the houses. You may not be able to get them for $500, but relative to the rest of the country, you can get some pretty inexpensive housing and multifamily properties. And we know quite a few people from New York and California and other places that either commute here, purchase their properties, and then they travel back and forth, or people who have just relocated here because of the real estate that they can purchase for inexpensively here in Detroit.
It's definitely a good time. I saw like 5 years ago, if you bought property in Detroit, you'd be sitting really nice right now. And it's still improving. So like you still have major developments that are coming to be anchors for certain areas in Detroit. Like we're talking about the train station with Ford Motor Company doing that area. Well, the big thing in Corktown around that was like, Slow's Barbecue opening up, and they're starting their movement over there. But now that area is just exploding with new infill of projects that they've relocated stadiums in Detroit, and we had an old Tiger Stadium site that was sitting abandoned for a long time, and now housing is going up around the old stadium. Baseball diamond remain on the other side of the diamond, sharing that with an athletic facility. And all of this stuff is just sparked all around the city. So it's prime for a developer. Still higher than it was 5 years ago, but still a good deal for somebody coming from like New York or the West Coast.
So is that a good thing or bad thing? For architects, it's great, right?
For architects, it's good. And I say in Detroit, like we still have a lot of opportunity areas that can go before, like everybody said, before gentrification comes into play. But one of the odd things about Detroit that we kind of really didn't talk about, a lot of people didn't live in downtown Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference
Right.
now. So like there are older office buildings and different buildings and now, like when Karen was talking about that experience at night walking through the city, those are African Americans who moved into downtown Detroit. And basically now that the businesses are coming here, like, Dan Gilbert owns a lot of things and has Quicken Loans here in the city, but other cities are coming. LinkedIn has an office here now, and people are actually living and working downtown. Before it was just working down here and that's it, but now that's been a big shift. So
Right.
Conversion of buildings that were empty into residential and developments, new ground up developments from that are residential. So that's been a big change. And the 7.2 they call it. So that living in the 7.2 has changed in the last 15 years.
Right. And a lot of that I would say is moving out to some of the neighborhoods now. The city of Detroit has 10 strategic neighborhoods that the city and corporations are investing money into. But some of the Detroit residents, longtime Detroit residents, still feel somewhat left out of the development. Sometimes people move in and they say, oh, Detroit's a blank slate. You can do what you want to do. But that's not true, because Detroit has a lot of history, culture here, and people are really invested in neighborhoods, and they love their neighborhoods and their city. So while there's a lot of development going on downtown and midtown in the 7.2, people are hopeful that all of that will move out into not just the 10 strategic neighborhoods, but all of the neighborhoods in the city of Detroit.
I want to go back to you guys meeting up and forming Noir Design Parti. How did that happen?
So as Karen described, she like I said, into the business. We worked together at another firm, and then I started, after the recession, I started my firm with my business partner, and we started to grow. So Karen had moved to the business development side of things. So it was, at the time, I think we had like a 3 or 4 person office. And we were like, okay, well, how do we scale up to do more kind of, business development stuff? When Karen was like, I can help out with that. I can help out with social media, this, that, and the other. So she came on as a contract worker with us for business development. And then, we're in the office now, like, talking all the time about different things. And as I say, I started talking and I get myself in trouble. But I started talking about, kind of, the effect of being Black and being an architect, the effect of getting a book when I was in school. And that, I felt like that was my only lens to African American architects. And that was the African American Architects in Practice book by Jack Travis. And then being more involved in NOMA and actually meeting Jack Travis at one of the NOMA conference, I think it was in Orlando. And I went, I walked up to him. I was like, man, your book was really, life changing for me in school. And, that, Architecture in Practice book, you should do another volume because, a lot's changed since then. And he was like, well, he said, I'm doing different things now. He said, that's for you to do. If you, I'm at the point now I'm handing that off. So, and I told that story to Karen. He was like, yeah, you should do a book. I was like, wow. I was like, yeah, that'd be nice, and then we started talking about like all the architects in Michigan and how the story's not told. And actually with Karen, was a Generation X. We're right in the middle of a lot of the architects that came before us, we know who they are, and like some of the generation behind us, they do not. And we were like, we're kind of the link between the two because of our generation. And so then we were like, well, we should tell that story. We, between us, we could figure out, which architects work for who, and it's in our grapevine, it's in our network. And then a lot of the older architects that we knew started to pass away. And during that same period, so Roger Mardrum, who was NOMA's Lifetime Achievement Award winner when we first started the chapter here in Detroit, passed. Varner passed away. Then Howard Sims passed away, and we were like, wait a minute, we're losing them before we could tell the story. So then we were like, okay, we definitely, that was we was like, we have to do it because we're losing them out. So we were talking about starting a project and what we should name it and what we should do. And then the Nice Arts grants started coming out, and Karen was like, we should apply for a Nice Art grant to do this. I'm like, okay.
Not knowing what I was getting into.
So and we applied one time, got, to the round of finalists, and we were like, wow, okay, and then made it, and we were awarded a Nice Arts grant. So we were like, okay, we have to do this project, we have to name it. And we came up with, because Detroit is a French-based city, Noir, and design and parti is a kind of, French for design concept. So we named it Noir Design Parti. So it started from a conversation in the office.
and a lot of that too, but Saundra and I have both heard people say, well, I don't know any Black architects in Detroit. So we wanted to, make sure that people do know that there have been for generations, and there still are lots of Black architects and architect designers in the city.
So Karen, you really fire starter then. Like you just
yeah, that's a great term.
That's what Saundra said. That's what she said. I said that was her book to write.
You just starting stuff. So Saundra, so you mentioned that you had your I kind of knew this too, like you had your own firm. How was that like?
It was actually the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life at the same time. It's hard to explain. I started that with my business partner, Damon Thomas. We actually went to Lawrence Tech together. And we had the idea of starting Centric Design Studio, was the name of our firm, when we were right out of college. We were like, man, we're going to start this firm. We came up with a name for the firm, and we're like, we're going to enter design competitions. We're going to win the competition, and that's it. We're going to launch our firm. This is going to be it. And we did. We entered a couple of design competitions. We didn't win any. But then when the recession hit, we both got laid off within 2 weeks of each other. And at the time, I was caregiving for my parents. I said, man, I can't go anywhere. He said, my parents are here too. And so I said, the first week I said, okay, I think I'm gonna go ahead and start doing the firm full time, and just see what happens during the recession. Nobody's hiring. There's nowhere to go but up. And then he called me 2 weeks later. I just got laid off too, where we were meeting. And we just started from our network of who we knew. And like I said, we just rode the wave. We had two of the best co-working spaces in the city that we designed and worked on. Everybody still talks about to this. Karen Space, SpaceLab Detroit, and Tech Towns on Junction 440 space. We were able to design an art gallery, David Klein Art Gallery, in the city right during the time of UNESCO City of Design and the art culture taking off in the city. And we also, part of our practice was in educational work. So that was like the bread and butter. Educational and kind of city projects was the bread and butter in the background of the projects, and able to get a couple of projects off of that. Just really nice, kind of adaptive reuse, all in that kind of space. For new construction that kind of never happened. And then as we started to grow, we got an offer to have our firm acquired by a firm that we had been teaming with on various projects. So we were acquired by Quinn Evans Architects. And actually, those two projects that new construction that we were working on actually became, and we're working on them now at Quinn Evans. So we brought those over with us. But
One of the hardest working architectural teams I've ever met. And they were an award-winning firm too. So they won awards for their work. And I don't think, Saundra, I ever told you and Damon. So after Damon got laid off from his job during the recession, he and I were working at Henry Ford College together.
Oh, yeah.
And he came into my classroom. He wanted to use a computer during the time. And after the class, he said, I got laid off. And I knew Damon had been at his job for a long time, longer than a lot of people stay at an architectural firm. And when I walked out of that building, I almost cried because I knew if he had gotten laid off, that the recession had to be really bad. Right. And I don't think I knew that you got laid off a couple of weeks after that. Right. I had to go do some self-care after that and think about what we were going to do. But Saundra and Damon recovered, seems like they recovered very quickly from that recession. Saundra will probably say they didn't, but they made it look good, and their firm was really successful for one that started during the recession. So,
wow. So, what was the decision to be acquired? Like, what? How did that conversation come about? Like, you're like, yes, or were you like, well, these are all these parameters, and these are all the conditions, and
we had a lot of success in teaming with different firms to get work in the city. So like the firm that Damon came from, one of the earlier projects we got was the DMC Cardiovascular Hospital with Harley-Ellis Devereaux, and that was right on time for us. Like I said, Damon got laid off from that firm. As soon as they were pursuing work in the city, they called us. We heard you started a firm. We want to talk to you about teaming on this project. And the same thing happened with the firm, not the firm that I got laid off for during the recession, but I had worked at prior. They said, we heard you started a firm. They called us to team up on another project.
That says do good work right there.
Right.
That says a lot about you.
A collaboration had been just key to our firm. So like towards the end of kind of the 10-year run, we had teamed up a lot with Quinn Evans Architects. We teamed up with them on the 20th Century Civil Rights Sites project, which is a project that's looking at civil rights history in Detroit. I actually went to them and said, look, I know you have historical background. I want to go after this project. I would love for us to team together. And developed a relationship with one of the principals at Quinn Evans that we started doing other projects. We did a 139 Cadillac together, which is a project that they had, and they were like, we don't have the capacity right now to handle this. We want somebody to come in and just take care of it. We had 3 people in their office, and I was coming in there half my time during the week, and we cranked out a couple of projects for them, various residential projects and existing buildings. And then we teamed together on some Detroit public school work. So we kept winning work together, and the relationship was good because I was starting to get this mentor relationship with the principal out of the Quinn Evans office, Liz Nibby. And during that relationship, she's like, I'm looking for the Detroit office to continue to strive, and this is your playground. This is where you're good at, and we need somebody like you. We need all of you. And they were like, the whole firm. We was like, wow. So we started talking about it. We were like, okay. Wow. We just started by conversations and talking about it and what would that look like. And then Liz revealed that she was like, I'm looking to retire in the next, couple years. And you're the leader, you would be the leadership. It's one other principal that would stay, and he's there now. And yeah, now we're it's 3 of us leading the Detroit office. And because of the relationship we had, it just rolled into a natural fit. A little bit of it was like, man, could we go through another recession, and do we want to? So this would be, a way to go through that. And then the other thing for me too was, now I'm like, okay, I'm getting closer to retirement on this side now than I was before. So that part was very attractive because we are part owners also in Quinn Evans. Yeah. So it came out as a good deal. It was like it was a natural fit. We didn't seek it, and it just came through once again, another conversation.
And we are not just the NOMA community and the Black architect community, but the entire architecture community is just so proud of Saundra and Damon and what they accomplished. And, it is still unusual for a majority firm to acquire a Black-owned architecture firm or firm of color, and especially a smaller company like that. And I think that speaks volumes about the type of work that Centric Design Studio did. They did great work in the city. I don't think a lot of people recognized their potential or hired them like they should have when they design studio. But now they have a bigger platform where they can make a huge impact, not only in Detroit, but Quinn Evans is a national firm. So Saundra's doing a lot of work nationally now too.
Yes, yes. And actually, and one other thing about Quinn Evans that a lot of people, don't know is that now currently the firm is 42% woman owned.
Oh.
And they say, basically it's because they started out as a historical preservation type firm, and for women who care more and have more empathy for their work, they love to save buildings, and it happened naturally at the firm. And with the goal of the firm to be 51% owned, in the next change of leadership. So there's a vice president now that's in place, a woman to take over as president on the next realm, and the firm will be over 51% woman owned, which is just amazing for the size that it is. And people don't know that Quinn Evans is a 200 person firm, and then to have that percentage of women owned leadership is amazing.
Managing an architecture project in an architecture firm has lots of moving parts. After experimenting with several different programs, I realized that I needed a software that is customizable for multiple tasks. The more I talked to other firm owners, the more I realized there was a void where my firm wasn't big enough for programs like Asana, Instagram, or Trello, and not so big to spend $10,000 up front for some integrated software. I wanted a software that could do dashboard and Kanban views, Gantt charts, serve as an internet for the company, and resource loading. Then I discovered Smart Sheets for Architects. Interested in how Smart Sheets for Architects helped me? Go to www.smartsheet4architects.com and enter in ArchisPoly in the promo code to receive 10% off the course. Save yourself hours of guesswork from dealing with conflicted spreadsheets.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that's actually I did when we first started to talk. It's like I knew about the two local offices in Ann Arbor and Detroit, but didn't know that across all the offices it was the same kind of pattern. It's kind of amazing, actually.
So, Karen, you seem to be a forward-thinking woman, right?
Yes.
I don't know about this week, but overall, yes.
So what are you projecting? What's the next project for you?
The next project for me?
Yeah.
We are working hard at sustaining SpaceLab Detroit here in the city, adding new members to our co-working space. I have recently started a firm, Architecture Engineering Collaborative, or AE Collaborative, with a civil engineer, structural engineer, and my husband, who is my business partner now in two companies, which is really interesting. But we are looking to do some more infrastructure type projects and government projects in Detroit and Michigan, and ultimately in a few other states. What else is next? Noir Design Parti. Saundra gave a speech a few months ago, which the speech was the book that she needs to be writing right now. So that is a project of ours, getting this book written and getting a publisher. Wow, what else? That's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's enough.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Like I said, the more people that Karen interacts with and starts to network with, like you said, she will start something new. Like I said, her having her space where it's all collaboration in the AEC industry is it's just her playground. To me, she's just like, oh, we can do this. She connects the dots. And, there's no telling what can happen in the next 10 years. That's
yeah. I hope there'll be a vacation in there sometime.
Yes,
Self-care.
Yes,
Right.
You have to do that.
So did both of you guys Saundra, you kind of already mentioned it, but for Karen, did you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
I think, I mentioned that I worked for a construction company.
And your grandmother.
So I worked for a construction company, and I did a lot of entrepreneurial things with him. He wanted to start a home maintenance business. I wrote the business. I read everything I could about starting a construction business, even though that's something I didn't do. But I think, that's the entrepreneurial bug kind of bit me then. And then there are lots of entrepreneurs in my family. So my grandparents owned a grocery store. My grandmother ran it. She was a butcher when there weren't any or many female butchers in the 1940s and 50s. My grandfather was a real estate developer. I don't think back then they called him that, but he built houses and rented them out to people, bought lots of property. I have an uncle who started a tech company, became an internet. And let's see, so lots of entrepreneurs in my family. So it's kind of in my blood, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely didn't have that background as far as entrepreneurship. My parents came to Detroit in the area just for the automotive industry and to get work and work years, retired from that. So the perspective that Karen has is mind blowing to me.
Yeah, all my hobbies turned into businesses. So I'm trying to stop that. I'm trying to figure out a hobby that I won't start a business.
Well, I mean, it's just that money, right? Like you right, I can make money off this.
Right. I thought Noir Design Parti was going to be a hobby too, and that's turned into a business. Yeah. I got to find. I don't want to try to sell.
I think you have a formula now. You have to stick with it.
Right? Yeah, you gotta stick with it now. You gotta stick with it. You gotta keep it going. Mm-hmm. So going back to Noir, what's next for that?
So we are we have content now that we have together. We're finishing up our website. And we have to do some video documentation of a couple of architects. So the website will be the first phase of that, including a mapping of African-American architects' work through a series of generations. And we separated the architects in Michigan through four different generations. We're going into the fifth now. And getting the word out there in a collective story, because everybody was, to me, not listening to the individual stories were happening. So we think it should come out as a broad story of, starting here in the 30s, 40s, when Detroit was booming, the school of Cranbrook developing, modern architecture booming here in Detroit, and then the story of this small group of architects starting, doing all of that, and basically it is a story of them coming up through their existing networks, which included being connected to Black neighborhoods and Black churches, all the way to today, where you have larger architecture firms now, and the first African American architect, Randy Hamilton's firm, Hamilton Anderson, being able to do a skyscraper, be an architect for our skyscraper in the city of Detroit, which has never happened. So starting from humble beginnings of Donald White and Francis Griffin, the first two licensed African American architects, to the present day of how they started out being the first of everything, and trailblazers to current day.
So this month we're going to have an interview on Michigan radio. It should be on the internet. We'll find out where that link is. And it talks about Donald White, who was the first Black architect in Michigan. He was also the first Black architect in Alabama, and first African American graduate of the University of Michigan School of Architecture. So that will be out. And then we're doing a panel discussion at University of Detroit Mercy with several generations of people representing some of the generations of architects in Detroit. But Saundra, you mentioned, the beginnings of the architects and how Cranbrook had the collaborative of architects that worked at Cranbrook, and that included the Sarnans, Yamasaki, the Eames.
Yes. Yep.
But at the same time, we can look at that collaborative of Black architects in Detroit:
Yes.
Donald White, Francis Griffin, Harold Ward, Nathan Johnson.
Yes.
So those architects that started working with Donald White, and then their firms sprung from there. Aubrey Agee.
Yeah.
So I think in the same way that there's that Cranbrook collaborative, maybe we can start looking at the collaborative of Black architects as well.
Yes. Yeah, the firm of Griffin and White was like a incubator to that first generation of architects. Pretty much all the ones who came out and started firms after that came from their office. When they came to Detroit, they came to work for Griffin and White.
Right.
So yeah, that's definitely a story. Definitely a story there.
Right. And we want to continue to highlight those architects because, a couple years ago, Nathan Johnson received the AIA Detroit Gold Medal. And a lot of people were not aware of Nathan Johnson or even that his firm existed, even though he has worked in nearly every district in the city of Detroit. And a lot of designs that you would not ever see anywhere else. A lot of mid-century modern type work. One of the few, if only, Googie styles of architecture in the city. And he was just recognized 20 years after his firm closed. So we don't ever want that to happen again to any other Black architect or architect of color. So we want to continue to highlight the people that are doing the work here.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about recently about how I know a whole bunch of architects here in the district and how it feels like that they are silenced almost, only because they don't put themselves out there. And I'm thinking maybe it's a struggle as is to get a job, to get a project, and to, keep the client happy and to, try to make profit.
Yeah.
But it seems that you don't know about them, but through word of mouth.
That's very true. I mean, I think like one of the things too that was kind of remarkable when we started our firm. You spend a lot of time. Like I said, I had to think, how can I grow? How can I bring somebody on? That's like Karen ended up coming on, but coming and your firm coming along at the same time as social media is free advertising. So we were like, I know we were one of the first architecture firms in Detroit to just put everything on blast on social media and on the internet when we started up. So it made it feel like we were bigger than what we were. We were doing like behind the scenes stuff. This is what's happening in our office today. And, people were like, man, you guys are doing this. So it did allow us to get that word of mouth out there. And to me, that was different than previous generations of architects that are very much nose to the grindstone.
And couldn't advertise.
Yeah.
Right? There's that silent rule that architects were not supposed to advertise at all.
Yeah. So I think it's been a big flip in that and how architects are out there. But as a small business, it is hard to do it all because you're wearing a lot of hats. It's hard to get the word out there. It's hard if you don't hire a PR person, if you are, busy working on projects instead of working on your business, which is, something that Karen and I both learned because we went through the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program here in Detroit. And just learning, how to spend your business, how to grow your business, is something that I didn't learn in architecture school. I didn't learn about the business of architecture. We learned about design, and not having an entrepreneur background. It's just like I said, to me, it was all the perfect mix that the entrepreneur mindset and wave was coming to Detroit at the same time when we started our firm, because it allowed us that background and to learn, what we should have in our back office, as well as the design studio part of it as well. So it's not an innate thing to me for architects to promote themselves.
Right. And typically you get into architecture and you stay in architecture because you love to design, right? And the business part is almost secondary to the design part. So, as Saundra mentioned, it's not always innate to the people that run the firms, unless they do have a business background or have gotten a business degree.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, so to me, some of the firms are successful when they have a partner that does something else too, that kind of pushes the firm further. But to me, it's not just in our nature to do it. We really have to think about it. Well, we get busy like 3 times a year. And one of them is February during Black History Month with our project. And then again in the summer, because now the word has gotten out that we do tours of the buildings designed by African American architects. So we've partnered with AIA Detroit. We've partnered with the Black Historical Sites Committee at the Detroit Historical Museum. Detroit Experience Factory, which is a local touring company here. So in the summertime, we end up doing a couple of tours. And then for the other big month for us is during the month of design. So September is the month of design in Detroit. And that's been through Design Course, which is the entity that runs the kind of creative economy here in Detroit. So we actually have usually some big thing that happens during design month. Last month, we had a series of salon talks during the Design One pop-up events. This year is talk of an exhibit and with the African American architects' history and then putting that together with present day architects. So that may happen this September for the month of design.
We've also talked about having a Wikithon where we get all of the architects, especially in our first generation, get their Wikipedia pages up. So we need to plan that and schedule it so we can get it done.
Yeah, because that's the other thing too. If you type an architect in Michigan, you're not, the list is a lot of the people that we mentioned. Some of them are out there now because actually their obituaries are out there, but not anything about their work or kind of celebration of what they did for their careers.
We were actually, when I say we, it's all the Karens. So Karen Williams, Kathy Dixon, and Kathy Moore, and Roberta Washington.
Yes.
So we got together. I wish this typing would go away. I'm sorry. Okay.
we all got together last 2 weeks ago, and we are revamping Vortex. And one of the things that we brought on our list was to do a Wikipedia-a-thon, if you mentioned it.
Okay.
And just start, because we just Googled, out of curiosity, Kathy Prigmore's name, and she swore she wasn't in Wikipedia, and we were like, no, you're in Wikipedia. And so then some of the information was wrong, so because she went in and corrected it, and that started the conversation of how, like, we need to, like, do this, like,
Right.
get everybody
Take
in
turns.
there. So maybe we can all pick a date.
Yes.
Oh, that would be cool.
And just like announce it to the world.
Yep.
Do it across different cities all on the same day. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we won't do that. Okay. I put down the list.
Okay. See, you're adding stuff too. I see it. That's a great idea.
You see, Karen and I are like spirit animals or something. Like like I am constantly thinking. Anything upcoming you want to announce, or any?
So February 21st is our panel discussion at University of Detroit Mercy. That is the only thing that we have on the calendar now. As I mentioned, we're going to have an interview with Michigan Radio, which is an NPR station. I believe it's an NPR station.
Actually,
but we don't have
February talking to a group of students at Norris Technological University.
Oh, okay. February 15th, we're talking at Lawrence Tech University. All right.
So the DAPSET program.
Oh, yes. With I forget what DAPSET is the acronym for, but it started out as an engineering program for students in Detroit. Some colleagues of ours, Rob Saxon, Kenneth Crutcher, and John Abella have a program.
Hayworth.
Oh, okay. Kalamazoo.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They have a program for students to learn architecture. Middle school students is their main focus. So we'll be talking to them at their first session this year to introduce them to Black architects.
Actually, we have another project that's ongoing too. I forgot about this. So we're working with the city of Detroit and the University of Detroit Mercy. The city of Detroit has a rehab and ready program that they're doing with the strategic neighborhoods. And one of the houses that they're going to renovate and that was abandoned and the city now owns was actually a Nathan Johnson designed house. So they're going to turn that into a net zero house. So we're part of the UID class, working with them to give the students a little history and background on Nathan Johnson and his design kind of ethic. And they are going to come up with 3 sustainable design solutions at the end. It's going to be an exhibit. And then the city is going to take one of those designs and implement it into the house. And then the house is going to be a showcase for sustainable renovations in the city of Detroit for the next year before it's sold.
Yeah. There are a lot of Black women architects doing their thing. Like I didn't realize how many of us have little side projects and programming and businesses or whatever that's highlighting other Black architects. So I was just like, I'm finding these things, and it's like we don't know about each other. So
a little conference would be nice, or
oh my God,
together directory. What's your web address, Alyssa?
It's archispolly.online.
Okay. And you all have you have your Black Women in Architecture brunch, right?
Yeah.
So somebody Naomi has been asking us to do that for years. I think it's time for us to do that. We need to have one of those here in Detroit.
And then, it's a simple networking event, essentially.
Right.
I mean, you just accept it's Sunday. and you serve French toast. Like, it's
There
very.
you go, Saundra love. Well, we both love French
French
toast.
We actually used to do that in our office. Instead of go for a drink, we would go to this place called the Pancake House and have French toast when we were upset about something. Like, oh man, I need to go. We need to go have French toast.
But let me know when you guys do that.
Okay,
Like,
okay.
the brunch thing.
Okay.
We have it here like twice a year, which may be once a year. Karen Williams does that.
Okay.
So,
Okay. And we got to try to make it DC for that.
Yes,
that'd be good,
I've
too.
been trying to get to DC for a couple of years now, so I need to come. That would be a good time to go during the brunch.
yeah, just let us know. We'll create a brunch. As soon as you come, we'll create the brunch.
Reason for a brunch. Okay.
And then a whole bunch of others will come.
Right.
So yeah. Thank you,
All right,
ladies.
thank you.
Okay, have a good
You
one.
too.
Okay, bye. Hey, listeners. I have an exciting announcement. I decided to launch a membership program for the show, where you have a chance to support me and the show directly. I love creating the show, and it means the world to me that you all tune in to keep hearing me week after week. But it takes an immense amount of time and energy to produce. I want to keep the show going, and I want to invest in its growth. And I also want you to become a partner with me in this journey. That's why I'm excited to give you a chance to officially become a supporter of the show at glow.fm/archispolly, ARCHISPOLLY, or by clicking the link in the show notes. It's quick and easy. It takes less than 30 seconds and just takes clicking a link in the show notes and using Apple or Google Pay. You don't have to create any new logins, and you can contribute as much or as little as you like. If this show is part of your day or week, and you like what I'm doing, then visit glow.fm/archispolly, all one word, and support me and the show in any way you can today.